offered as part of our Synod's mission of equipping you for ministry. Our mission is to care for, connect, and equip our congregations to be the heart and hands of Jesus. As you can imagine, equipping is a very important part of how the office of the bishop supports our leaders in our congregations. And so that means that we cover many different topics on these webinars to accomplish that. So today we thought it would be helpful to bring in members of the Synod's Children, Youth, and Family Ministry team to talk about navigating through the pressures of this time and ways to stay creative during this time, and how we might enhance our connections and faith formation using that out-of-the-box thinking for children, youth, and family ministries. So today we're grateful to Jay Kiel, who is the Director of Youth and Family Ministries for St. Luke's in Middleton, and he is the co-convener with Heather Greenlee of the Synod's Children, Youth, and Family Ministry team. So he'll be our guest speaker today, and he'll be bringing some ideas from his team. Also, as you know, we typically record these webinars for those unable to make it, or if you'd like to revisit any of the content. The links can be found on our website under scsw-elca.org webinars. And as always, feel free to put your comments and questions in the chat area throughout the hour. And now I will turn it over to Bishop Joy for a word of prayer.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here with you on this Tuesday afternoon. I also want to just make a note and welcome to Marie Leafblad, who just joined our Synod staff on Monday. So I think Marie is waving at us. Marie, would you just like to say a hello and just introduce yourself for a second?
Hello. I'm Marie Leafblad. Welcome. Thank you. I started yesterday. This is my first big Synod meeting, which I'm super excited about. So I just left St. Luke's in Slinger, Wisconsin, which I'm still at as their youth and family pastor. Been there for 5.5 years, and I'm ecstatic to be on staff working with youth and family, just because it's a huge passion of mine. Family ministry, you know, as we all know, the next generation is key, and we love them because of their spunk and their excitement and their lovely questions that they ask when we're not prepared for. And so as we've navigated through COVID, it's been honestly a real wild ride in youth and family, because the kids have taught us quite a bit on how to be better. And so I'm just excited for this conversation and excited to be on Synod staff. So thank you.
Thank you, Marie. So Marie will be coming into the office tomorrow, and she's going to start learning the ins and outs of mobility and some of the traditional things that you're used to Reverend Kotke doing. But as we continue to take shape in the Synod office, you'll be hearing lots more from me about all of that. But that is our newest addition to Synod staff. So I'm glad that she could join us today. For our devotion as we get going this day, I picked up from Lutheran Campus Ministry. They have put out a really nice devotion. This is Lutheran Campus Ministry at UW-Madison, and they have a nice devotion. And today's devotion was written by Rachel Smith, who's a Lutheran Campus Ministry alum and staff from the year 2019. And their format for devotions is around a word, and the word that she had is wind, from Genesis 1, verse 2. The earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. And she writes, wind can be such a powerful force. It can blow down houses and move the waters to cover oceans. Yet wind can also be a calming and refreshing. Imagine lying in the grass field surrounded by just nature and feeling a nice cooling breeze, bringing the smells of fresh flowers. It amazes me that wind can cause harm, yet also be so calm. The very beginning of Genesis is about God's creation, how God created the world out of nothing, when the earth was just a rock with water floating in space. Even in this barren land, a wind blew. It moved the oceans and awakened the land, preparing for God to make this floating rock into a place of growth and new beginnings. This wind from God I imagine as a breath, as God continues to create. Even in a formless void, God was present. No people or animals around. God decides to take a breath and share this breath in the form of wind. Even when no one is there to hear or feel this wind, God is present. Let us pray. Lord God, help us find your presence in places that are dark. Breathe new life into us as we continue a new year. Let us remember your gentleness, like the wind that blows through a prairie. Amen. I turn it back to Vicki to introduce our speaker today and get our hour going.
Okay, well, it's going to be an easy segue here. We're happy to have with us Jay Kiel, who is the Director of Youth and Family Ministry, as I mentioned, at St. Luke's in Middleton, and also serves on the Synod's Children, Youth, and Family Ministry team. So we're very happy to have him with us here today and hope we get inspired. So over to you, Jay.
Thank you. And Robin and I tried this, so hopefully I can share the screen. And in true Jay Kiel / youth ministry fashion, I chose something with lots of colors. First of all, thank you to Bishop Joy and Vicki for inviting me to have this conversation and share a little bit about navigating youth ministry. And when I was putting this title together on this slide, it came out this way, and this wasn't the way I actually meant to write this phrase, and I kept it because it started to make me think in a whole new way. So navigating youth ministry and Easter thinking. So one of the things that when Vicki called me a few weeks ago or a month ago about this, was share ideas about how can we get creative about Easter. When I wrote this way, I meant something else, and I started thinking, as Lutherans, we are grounded in Easter. We are grounded in the hope of Christ at Easter. So even as we're navigating this time period that we're in, no matter what the time of year is, we can consistently be seen as Easter thinking. So I hope that is where this little time together can go, that we can be grounded in that together. So a few quick thoughts on this idea of navigating ministry, and for my perspective, or perspective representing the Children, Youth, and Family Synod team, would be from a youth perspective, that we are all, regardless of age, regardless of what form of ministry we are in, we're all navigating something. We're all on a form of a journey. And as we start to dig into this, that we'll see that what part of the journey we are on, I think can actually be a benefit to how we look for ideas or answers, or how we ask questions. And I will tie that up hopefully soon. With that, let's see. So to start, I wanted to start by sharing a little bit of who I am, and I'll explain why in a moment. So I'm Jay Kiel. I work at St. Luke's, co-convene the Synod group. But here are some things that make me who I am. I love to run. I love things that bring me outdoors. In fact, I intentionally set my computer in front of a window today so I can see some of the brightest sunshine we've had in a while in this area. I love music. I am not one that produces music well, but I love to listen to it. I love to take it in and be inspired by it. The idea of a conversation, of interactions through listening and learning from others, is something that's really important to me. As I look on the screen, I noticed that there's 3 or 4 people that I actually work directly with. They all know this. I'm a very passionate human being. I pretty much, most of what I do and how I do it goes through the filter of my heart first, and then it starts to go through other things. I am energetic. I tie that to the passion. I pretty much bring a 100% 100% of me and my energy to things I do, which also is interesting because a more personal share is that in the middle of all of that, I'm actually very sensitive as a human being as well. And so you may wonder why I share all of this to start this conversation, because I want to take a moment, and it doesn't have to be out loud, but a moment for you to pause and think of what do you bring? Who do you bring to a space when you enter it? What likes, dislikes, personality traits that you are willing to share right away, and ones that you may like to just know for yourself, but that's still who you are and who you bring to that space. So I'm just going to give us just a moment to think of when you enter into a space, whether you're going to make a decision, prepare for a message, prepare an event, who do you bring? What do you bring into a space? As we continue to think about that, there's this quote, I've adapted it to have a more wholesome image of God, but from Roy Lesson that says, just think, you're not here by chance, but by God's choosing you. God's hand formed you and made you the person you are. God compares you to no one else. You are one of a kind. You lack nothing God's grace can't give you. You are here at this time in history to fulfill a special purpose for this generation. And so one of the things that in thinking about youth ministry that fits, as I said, passionate person, fits one of my largest passions is whether it's well-meaning or not, I think we hear or say the phrase that we should be thinking about youth ministry and youth because they're the church of tomorrow. I am here to challenge that and say that the youth are the church of right now as well. And the youth are the church of today. And that means that when we are navigating a year-long journey of COVID, when we're thinking of how to engage the church and youth into the whatever way we do ministry, probably changing a couple times a day right now, that the youth's voice and experiences are just as important in this moment as they are in a future sense as well. And so with that, I'm going to try to explain what I mean by that by telling a story about Legos. So in super youth ministry fashion, I tend to think in story form. And I tend to, when I don't understand something, my mind personally starts to go to, well, what are things that I do understand that can lead me to something that I don't, to gain that understanding. And so that made me think about Legos. As a kid, I loved playing with Legos. I loved the idea of building this thing that wasn't there at one point, and being able to build it and play with it. And fast forward years, now I have a 3, almost 4-year-old that is loving Legos themselves. And the difference between Legos when I was playing with Legos as a child to now is actually quite a bit. I didn't realize it till I went to like buy a set of Legos for my son and realized that they're all like very like specific sets now. And that got me thinking about navigating ministry in this past year. What we were used to was this kind of life as we knew it way of doing things. And yes, we did switch things up here and there. In youth ministry world, we might switch up what camp we go to, or the theme of camp, or where we go on a mission trip. But we pretty much knew that July, third full week of July was mission trip week. We pretty much knew that the second week of June was VBS or whatever that thing was. And then we might change from building with the orange Lego to the yellow one, but we still knew it was going to stack on top of the other 3 little bricks. And then COVID came along, and we all of a sudden out of nowhere were set in front of this aisle of Legos that we've never seen before, of these very specific sets, when we've only been used to playing with the big box of Legos that the biggest variety was color, and if they were 2 Legos in a square, or maybe 3 or 4 in a rectangle, and that was our variety. And so as we entered this world, I think in the paragraph of the little teaser, if you will, for this talk, I had said that we are hit with questions all the time. And I think that, I know for me, and if I may assume, we've probably been asked these questions even before COVID of why aren't you doing this, or why should we not do this, or those types of questions. And when we're handed this, to work the Lego mentality one more time, when we're handed this specific thing we've never worked with before, it feels as if we were handed it with the instructions for another Lego set. And then we were all all expected to kind of build this thing. And so some of the questions that we can navigate, and I'm sure we all have in some way, is, well, kids need connection. So how are we going to connect? Our church needs to worship. How are we going to worship? If this passion is that youth are not just the church of tomorrow, church of the future, how are they part of worship now, even though worship is changing as well during this time? And so as all of these things come together, we start to realize that we just have this very confusing set in front of us. And there are moments that I will share from the CYF gathering. There are moments where we spend time just acknowledging the fact that we have different instructions and a different set in front of us, and we're not sure what to do with it. And then there's times where we acknowledge that through listening to one another, through sharing ideas, through remembering that even if it doesn't make sense right now, we are here for this moment. That God made us who we are to bring who we are into this moment. And so in stepping back and kind of taking a breath in that, that we can start working together to navigate how are we going to build this thing. And so to pull out of our Lego idea now into youth ministry world is how are we going to navigate the fact that youth do need to connect in some way. And some of the things that have been helpful is that we do have the ability to meet in some ways, that this conversation is still able to happen because we have things like Zoom, that phone calls or safely set messaging opportunities are available to meet youth where they are and to be able to hear what their needs are. So as I share this next idea, I just want to be very conscious of saying that this is not a, two things. This is not an advertisement and this is not a look how we figured it out, because as I'll share in the end of the story, it actually just continued a journey that now we're going to continue to navigate. So one of the things that has been very clear throughout COVID and kind of ramped up throughout COVID was that we were hearing that youth mental health is an incredible situation that we need to be honest about. And a situation that, if I may say publicly in this group, the church has not necessarily been proactive about. And I'm saying overall church. There are churches, there are church leaders that do take this very seriously and are outspoken about it. And I don't want to deny that, but I would say as an overall approach, we're not necessarily proactive about. And in meeting with other youth directors and hearing from youth in our church, in our specific situation at St. Luke's, and listening to them and some of their friends, this was only getting worse and feeling more alone in these situations. And so one of the things that we were able to do is just sit down and ask what would be helpful. And one of the biggest things that we heard is to know that they're not alone. There's this yearning for connection, to just be able to hear from other youth that they're not alone. And since this was in the middle of a global pandemic and a COVID virus outbreak, we realized that putting a bunch of kids inside the sanctuary was not the way we could do it this time around. And so we were able to safely interview youth and record these conversations and create something that you may or may not have seen called 10 for 10, where we were able to have 10 conversations looking at 10 themes around mental wellness and mental health for 10 days in this past October. And I had shared earlier, running's one of my passions, and running is actually one of my ways of working through my own journey around mental wellness and mental health. And so to help raise that awareness, I had personally committed that I would run 10 miles a day for 10 days straight to help raise awareness around this thing. The best thing that happened is youth jumped on and wanted to be a part of this conversation and be in these recorded conversations. That was able to be the focus, was these conversations and not this crazy youth director running, which was awesome. And what ended up happening is kids in texting conversations, kids who aren't necessarily connected to our church or a church are all of a sudden on Snapchat groups talking about these things because they saw so-and-so opening up about it. And they know that this person has been going through something, but yet they weren't at school to know that all of this was happening. And so they were able to engage in that way and support one another through things like that. And like I said, this is not a look what we did, it worked. It actually brought up a lot more conversations that need to be had and in ways that the church can look at this situation in a more proactive and serious way. And so that's just one example of kind of how we, to go back to the Lego idea, how we had this thing that we weren't sure how to navigate around COVID with instructions for breaking the stigma around mental health. And one of the things that really influenced that working the way it did was that soon as the youth knew they were empowered to have a voice and have a say on how we would move forward, that's how this got birthed. That's how this was able to have some traction in moving forward. And so with that idea in mind, I know that one of the things that I was actually intentionally asked here for is to talk about Easter. So I will move us into that. But with that same idea in mind, we are all in different places of navigating this journey of if we gather, how we gather. One thing I will say is that I said this a little differently in something else for our church, but as much as I do not like COVID, I do not like that the physical church doors closed in one way or another. There was a silver lining, I think, and one that I'd like to share. I think it helped us see, or I hope we can look at it and see where this journey we're traveling leads us towards what is the ministry of what we do, and not necessarily what are all the things we do. And so bringing us back to the core, that's why I started with, who are you? Who and what do you bring into the room? Because if that room is virtual, if that room is pre-recorded, if that room is in person, everybody else who enters that brings who and what they are into the room as well. And as we, if we meet people where they are and who they are, I think that's ministry. And obviously I'm going to look at that from a youth perspective. That's where I've been called to serve right now. But I think that's true about any space that we enter. And I think for me, looking at the journey of this past year and kind of redoing the whole way of thinking has made me think about not just what programs am I doing, what events am I running, but what is the ministry of what we're doing, and how is who I am affecting the ministry, and how does it meet people with who they are in their unique and wonderful differences as well. So with that idea in mind, bringing us looking into Easter, I wanted to say that one of the things that was really Ash Wednesday that was cool for me is it actually happened in super church style last minute, because someone didn't show and it just ended up happening and God was at work and it was great. We actually were able to have a youth help us with Q-tip style ashes as people drove out of a drive-in worship service. And it was just this crazy moment. But in 11 degrees outside, people driving by, and being able to walk alongside one of our youth members of our congregation in this holy moment really made me realize this is who we are. This is our ministry, that we can come together, kind of not forget, but for a moment leave behind all of the chaos and craziness, and just remember that our humanness and that God loves us in the middle of all of that. And that connection of who we are as a beloved child of God connects us and brings us together, regardless of what together is in that moment. And so to move forward to Easter ideas, some of the things that that we are thinking, I will first say on a St. Luke's perspective, is we are looking at, we're going to go drive-in style still for our worship services. I know every congregation is different. And one of the ways to try to engage families and youth in a different way is we're actually we're gonna have morning worship, but then we're gonna do an afternoon worship service where the worship service is going to be intentionally geared towards families. So that the people that work with children, youth, and family at our church will all intentionally be in leadership positions of the service and things along those lines. I will say that it's not what you would imagine as like just the youth service. That's intentional, so we know that that all community members are welcome, but that our families get to see one another and see the people that are working with them as staff members at the church in those situations. Just due to COVID, they haven't seen some of us as much. And so that is one thing that we are looking forward to trying and navigating. And another one that we are looking at is ways to do, and a few churches I know in our synod from conversations are trying this, ways to do outdoor distance masked, somehow regulated Easter egg hunts. And the reason I share this, it seems like a funny thing to share in like this conversation. And the reason I share that is because I think that it's important that we see that although yes, COVID has brought us back to the ministry, one of the things that church can be is a safe place to gather. That is our ministry, is a safe place to gather. And so even in something crazy like figuring out how to COVID-friendly, socially distant, do an Easter egg hunt is a safe place for youth to gather, to know that they can come together. It's, if you heard the phrase smize, see each other's smiles through their eyes and just have that moment together is a way to minister as well. And so I've talked a lot, but those are a few of the ideas that are starting around Easter in our synod and in the church I serve at. But also, I think it's that joint idea of that journey of navigating. I use the Lego idea, but that journey of being able to step back, find each other, talk to one another, and just think and dream anew. I had another note somewhere, but I can't find it. So if there are, I could go a lot of directions from here. I guess I would like to hear if there are questions or things specific to navigating COVID in youth ministry. I know this isn't the exact part of the topic, but if there are ways to maybe support the youth or people that work with youth, I can try to answer those, or things about Easter specific. I can do that as well.
One of the reasons I invited you, Jay, here was because I saw what you did with the mental health exercise ministry with the youth. And I'm not sure, I saw it, I saw the event itself too. So I'm not sure that what you gave us so far is illustrative enough for anybody to model after. And I thought one of the neat things, well, a couple of things that I thought were really neat about it is, first of all, the depth of the conversations that you had with the youth. And so I wondered, can you give us a little bit picture about how those interviews took place, how you got the youth's permission, the parents' permissions, you recorded them, and then we were able to watch some of those at your event. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that came together?
Yes. So I put what I hope is a quickly typed link to the page on our website that has some of those, has all the conversations on there. But yeah, so the process that led to that it started actually, well, it's twofold. So one of the things was that I had received a phone call, and I should say this on this meeting, I have full permission to share the story. I asked ahead of time to make sure. So I had received a phone call from a youth that they were traveling with their parent to the hospital because things got very serious for them with their depression. And the next day, I got a text from another youth saying that they weren't doing well. And an hour later, I got a text from another youth asking if they could call. And all of a sudden, in 2 days, I was talking to 3 youth about these things. And the one common denominator was, I don't know where to go. I don't know if this is serious enough to talk about. That comment of, I don't know if this is serious enough to talk about, rocked my world. In fact, if there's St. Louis staff on here, they know I spent like a half hour at one of our staff meetings, like processing how much it rocked my world. And so a few of these youth, we were able to have very authentic back and forth conversation and connect them to the help that they needed. Was able to, in these particular situations, we were able to have parents involved. That's not true every time, but in this situation it was. And we were able to get to the point where I said, what would help you know that you can talk about this? That it doesn't have to get to the point of mom and dad found such and such an object, realized it was serious, we're on our way to the ER. What would help you know that, hey, I'm having a bad day and it's okay to tell somebody just in general, like today's not a good day, can we talk? And one of the most common answers was, honestly, just knowing I'm not alone. And a lot of the youth realized that even just being next to kids at school and being on sports teams together, that they would have these little conversations without even knowing it. And so when things got more isolated, that just heightened everything. It was already an issue. There was already a silence. There was already a stigma to break. It just heightened that. And so in these conversations, they said, just to know I'm not alone, to know that someone would be willing to listen to me, and to know like what my resources are. And so that process then led to a member, happened to be a member of our church, but she is a licensed child psychiatrist and therapist. And so she got a, probably to her, very out of the blue phone call from me. And I said, like, what do you suggest? And she said, youth being able to see youth talking about this. And I said, so we can't gather 300 people into the sanctuary right now or throw a big event at a local auditorium. What can we do? And then that conversation led towards, well, we're recording worship services. What if we record these conversations? And so we picked 10 themes that came out of these conversations, 10 basic themes that came out of these conversations with youth. and focused on them for 10 days in a row, and had it was like 7 to 10 minute conversations, kind of interview style, with youth sharing their story. For this particular time, I did the interviews. One of the reasons for that is because we wanted to show we were very COVID conscious, so we didn't want to just have a bunch of people all over the screen. But what ended up happening with that is they were able to see that someone from their church, a leader in their community, was willing to be involved in these conversations, was willing to ask questions in the middle of an interview of, and how did you find help? Did you find help? Did you know there was help? Was there help? And continue to move with that. So as you can tell, I could talk about this all day. I could probably do a full conversation on this, but hopefully that helped paint a little better picture of kind of where that grew from, and how, yeah.
Yeah, that's great, Jay. And that's such an important topic for our youth today. We know mental health, and especially with this pandemic and the isolation, how it has exacerbated that. So your work there was wonderful. It was hard work, and was thoughtful work. And I think, that's enough for anyone on this call who they wanted to pursue something similar. They would be able to know that they can call you and rely on you for guidance along that path. So I'll stop there and open it up for questions from anybody else, or even if you would like to share some of the unique things that you're doing with your youth and family for the Lenten Easter season, and we can share and steal each other's ideas.
Yeah. I will say that we do have monthly gatherings for children, youth, and family workers of various from various positions, and that is where a lot of these ideas take shape, to be able to share those together. And we're pretty open that we all know we're going to steal from each other.
Sure.
I had one question, Chad, in the chat to me. How are we doing confirmation in youth group? Confirmation, we are meeting socially distant in our fellowship hall with a setup for hybrid using Zoom. And then we also record the Zoom, so it's available as an online video as well. So our confirmation is kind of a threefold offering at the moment, just based on ever-changing schedules and various family situations and stuff along those lines. And youth group, now that it's warming up, we're gonna get outside and hopefully meet in that way. One of the things, actually, this was actually an idea from a youth, and last Saturday, I went to Elver Park in Madison and just said, I'll be there from 10 to 11:30. All middle schoolers who want to come, grab your mask and your sled, and we'll go sledding. And that was based on a youth saying, hey, like my Girl Scout group went sledding, and it felt very safe and feel like we can do this. And it was fun, even from a distance, to just hear each other laugh as we went down the hill. Mm-hmm. And so that's another thing that we were able to do. I think that was the only question I got, at least.
Who else would be willing to share? What are y'all doing?
I just have a question. I'm wondering if you're noticing Zoom fatigue or Zoom burnout from the kids as well.
I personally am, yes. It's harder and harder to get use on it. That was one of the driving forces to us moving hybrid and online videos at having the threefold confirmation option was based on the Zoom fatigue. A lot of this, we represent about 5 school districts between all the kids at our school, at our church. And now it's starting to change a little, but for our middle school and high school, we were 4 out of 5 for the whole school year up until about 2 weeks ago that were only on Zoom. And so to have them come back a couple hours after being on all day, all week, and then jump on for church stuff was becoming too much for them. Although youth group, we've been able to continue a Zoom one. I will say that was actually another youth-led thing. They said they like playing Among Us, so we play. There's a way you can make it a private game, and we play Among Us while we're all on Zoom, and we chat and laugh together as we play this game, and kind of meet them where they're at in that moment. And then I can get them on Zoom for that, but definitely Zoom fatigue though. A lot of classes are logged on, muted mics and cameras off. So.
What game do you play?
We play Among Us, which is an app on phone or tablet. And I cannot speak as an expert. I'm learning this from the youth. They're now creating different ways to play the game. So there is a traditional way to play. And it's almost, people who play the game might say this description doesn't work, but it's almost like a animated way to play like the game like Mafia. If you've played that card game before, it's kind of like that. But now there's variations where we actually use the game to play hide and seek with each other through the game. So just variations like that. But there's also, I don't know if I can find it fast enough. If I can, I'll put it in the chat section. There's also a way to play like traditional like card and board games online through an online website that somebody way smarter than me created and allowing people to use, and it works through Zoom screen share as well.
Looks like Leah has a question.
Not so much a question, but I guess I'll respond to Vicky's question of what it is that we're doing. And for our 9th graders, we really transitioned to a project-based year where they're doing a lot of group teaching of their peers. But the other part of it, and actually the part that I probably enjoy the most, is on Wednesday nights they can come and hang out with me on Zoom for just their normal confirmation time to basically check in and talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. And it's optional for them. And I mean, there's a solid group of 4 to 5 kids who come every week and just hang out. And I think the thing that I've learned in doing that is that our youth are looking for a place to just be silly for a little while, and that they also enjoy doing it with, and this perhaps puts me a little higher on a pedestal than what I mean to, but they're looking to do it with an adult that they trust or will at least affirm them in that. I mean, obviously, like, we have boundaries in the group, to be safe and respectful, but for the most part, they just do it. They talk, like we've talked about Among Us. We've played Among Us, so I know exactly what you're talking about, Jay. I also did not know about Among Us until we got here, but that's what we've been doing with our 9th graders, and I would say it's been quite successful.
Great.
Yeah, I think there's a definite in all of these conversations, and I tend to share in story form, so that's kind of how I did the presentation. But I think in all of these, in Leah too, there's a sense of, we all have a sense of wanting to belong. And I think if that's at our core, I think there's a lot of ways we can still help each other belong. even in these changing times, or maybe especially in these changing times.
Anybody else willing to share what they're doing with your children or your youth?
I can share. Hi, I'm Rebecca Bell. I'm the youth and children, youth, and family director at Faith Lutheran in Walworth, and we're a smaller congregation, so we've been able to gather a bit with our children for faith formation and things because we have pretty small groups. But our vicar has put out some midweek Lenten reflections, and part of that is a prayer. And so we've had each of the classes record themselves giving the prayer. So that goes out with the recorded Lenten reflection. And we've had a lot of positive feedback from church members because we haven't been having worship that just like see the children and be involved. And then we watch the Lenten reflection at our faith formation. And so the kids see themselves on the screen, and that's been really positive. We did a little bit of that for Advent too. We're kicking around last minute sort of making a Monday, Thursday worship into sort of a children's program skit that would go out virtually somehow, which isn't necessarily Easter, but it still puts them in as part of the Holy. And so that's how we're trying to involve them, the rest of the congregation virtually, even though we can sort of meet together as small groups of kids.
Great.
Now that I'm over the nervousness of doing this talk, I found my other notes. We also had our children's coordinator, Beth is her name. She put together egg cartons with 12 different eggs that walks through the season of Lent and Holy Week in various ways. And so one of the ideas I know that some churches are doing is a version of that where they're doing like a Holy Week at home, where there's just different little things that help you engage in the story in new ways. Some are adding pre-recorded videos to that include youth and the leaders, and others are just having it be at home based, kind of based on that Zoom fatigue for some of the families. But that is one other option as well. And if I can put my contact info in here, but if people do have questions around some of those ideas, I can either answer them or point to the people that know better than me of what the resources are for that. But that's definitely an idea that has been actually building some excitement and engagement in our with the youth that we've from St. Luke's, the children from St. Luke's, for that to have that kind of like step by step. And then it was just cool because it was in an egg carton and the kids thought that was cool. But
yeah, Tim.
Another thing, Jay, that you've done that I think others might be interested in trying to do something like that is a big thing that's missing is a connection between the generations. And so the youth in our church have put together, I guess, gift bags for senior members who are home-based, and that's a lot larger group right now because of COVID. And I can't remember what all they've done up for Christmas, Thanksgiving. We're going to do it for Easter. I think there's another one coming up after Easter, but we find the adults who would like something delivered, or I think we delivered to everybody over 80. What was it, Jay?
Yeah, everyone over 80 in our congregation. And
then families would take the bags and deliver them to the doorsteps of these people. And at least they would stand outside on the sidewalk and wave when they got the bag. So it was a way that there was a connection between the generations still that's really missing.
Nice. Mark, yeah. Mark's applauding that. Do you had a comment earlier though, Mark?
Yeah, wrong emoji. Sorry, guys. Yeah, Mark Williamson, Grace in Dodgeville, and we have a children's ministry team that's throwing together a bike parade on Palm Sunday at 2 o'clock. So I thought that was a fun idea. Kind of take the processional thing that they'd normally be doing in the sanctuary and turn it into a bike parade at one of the parks. And, you know, and they'll tell the story and sing some songs and hand out these Holy Week bags that like same idea, Jay, with the egg cartons and different symbols in the eggs for different days in Holy Week. And, you know, probably a good way to invite people from the community to our Holy Week worship and Easter worship by targeting Palm Sunday.
That's really cool.
Anyone give any thought to Palm Sunday? What are we doing about Palm Sunday?
I'm going to Mark's bike parade.
Yeah, I'm going to the bike parade. I'll be in Dodgeville.
Might be
I'm
snowing.
going to
You know,
bike
it's
right now.
March 28th, right? Might be snowing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say that was happening on Palm Sunday?
Yeah, there's a Palm Sunday idea.
Oh, sorry. I missed that. Okay. What are we going to do without our palms?
I would love to hear ideas. I think that's part of, I don't know if I emphasized enough. I think it's through moments like this where we all like kind of sit and wonder and look at those instructions and piles of things in front of us and think, what could we do?
Connie, do you have an idea?
I do. We're going to do Holy Week deliveries. So at Christmas, we delivered cookies to everybody and everybody loved that. So for Holy Week, we're going to deliver a palm, deliver
Yay.
something for Monday, Thursday. We're looking at these little wooden communion cups and then a bread recipe. For Good Friday, we're going to deliver, there'll be a cross in there, a candle for Easter Vigil, and then a present that says, do not open until Easter.
Woo.
And so we're going to deliver all that stuff. And then have, of course, the video stuff, and there'll be devotions in there for people to use that at home. But everybody's going to get their palms. We're just bringing them to them. So
is your present going to be empty?
No.
I just thinking, empty because the tomb.
I don't know, Tim. No. There's going to be something. And you know me, so there'll be fruit snacks in there for the kids or something. And then like a little butterfly or something. We still haven't found what we're going to do, but that's what we're doing.
A butterfly that sings Alleluia, flying out of the box.
You could do something where you invite the congregation to make their own palms. And if you have a crafty congregation, I guess. And then, on Easter, it could be a fun way to show them off. Or, I'm sorry, not Easter, Palm Sunday.
Our early childhood coordinator put together some baskets for the preschool and underage. And one of them is by the way, Menards will give you these for free. You can get a paint stir stick and put the paint stir stick with a glue stick and green construction paper. And they work together as a family to trace their handprints and then glue those to the and create their own palm to use as a family, as an option that we or that I cannot take credit that she put together for that.
Fabulous. Well, thank you. You've given us a lot to think about. And if y'all don't know how to save the chat, does everyone know how to save the chat comments? Do you know how to do that? You go down to the chat, click on it, and then in the lower right, there's 3 dots in that comment box. You click on that and just hit save chat, and it saves it to your Zoom file on your hard drive. So that will give you all the links that Jay provided to you and any additional helpful comments. So thank you, Jay, so much for sharing that and for inspiring this conversation. A lot more to talk about, obviously. And thank you for being open to having people call you if they want to follow up on some of the things that you shared today. If you would like to stay informed and be part of the Synod's Children, Youth, and Family Ministry Network, you can reach out to Jay or Heather, and they will be happy to make sure you are receiving the invitations. And again, Jay gave you his contact information in the chat, but you can also find it on the Synod website at www.scsw-elca.org/youth ministry. You might also be interested in the team's Facebook group, which they communicate a lot on. And that is Facebook groups /SCSW Youth. So great ways to get a hold of them and start networking and being an active participant in our Synod's ministry. Our next Equipping the Saints webinar will be on March 16th, and we've invited Dave Daubert. You might remember that name. He co-authored a book with Kelly Fisher and was a speaker in our Synod back in, 2010 or something like that. It's been a while. But he's now the lead consultant and managing partner for Day 8 Strategies, which does coaching and consulting for faith-based organizations and their leaders. He works across the US and Canada, and he's a leading proponent for emergent planning for nimble ways of working in today's world. He's a known author and speaker, and he has just published a new book, Becoming a Hybrid Church, and it's available on Amazon if you want to read it before he's with us. You might know Dave's other works, Seeing Through New Eyes. You may remember that one. The Future Starts Now, Living Lutheran, Renewing Your Congregation, and Reclaiming the V Word, Renewing Life at its Vocational Core. So he's a wonderful resource for us. We're so excited that he's going to be with us for an hour. So March 16th at 2 o'clock on your calendars. Bishop Joy, final comments?
One final comment would be that I've heard Dave Daubert's book is actually sold out of its first run.
Yes, so, they've reprinted. Yep.
Yes, you may get a crack at the second printing, but go quickly to Amazon is what my word for the day is. But again, thank you to Jay for being with us today, and thanks to all of you for giving of your time this afternoon. I hope that you found this hour to be helpful and to get your creative minds going around children, youth, and family ministry. And blessed afternoon to all of you this day. Thanks for joining us.
And welcome again to Marie. We're looking forward to getting to know you better. Thanks for joining us for this Equipping the Saints webinar. It's always better with you here. Have a great day.